In the heart of Western Africa lies Niger, a country with a rich historical tapestry and an economy that has been shaped by its past. For years, the Nigerian economy has been heavily dependent on traditional subsistence crops, livestock, and the extraction of uranium. However, the country's economic growth has been hindered by a myriad of challenges. Niger, endowed with substantial uranium reserves, became a pivotal player in the global nuclear energy landscape. However, the story of uranium in Niger is one of intricate control and exploitation, with France emerging as a prominent figure in its exploitation. The uranium journey in Niger traces back to the mid-20th century, when uranium deposits were discovered in the desert north of the country, primarily around the region near Arlit. These discoveries marked the beginning of Niger's association with uranium mining, starting with the opening of the first mine in 1971. Operated by a national company jointly owned by France's Areva, formerly known as ARA, and the Nigerian government. France's involvement in Niger's uranium sector deepened over the years, with significant stakes held by French companies. Areva, holding a substantial share, wielded substantial control and influence in the extraction, processing, and sale of uranium from Niger. The collaboration between France and Niger through mining partnerships seemed beneficial on the surface, but in reality, it led to a lopsided arrangement. Under these agreements, France and French companies garnered substantial profits from Niger's uranium, while providing minimal returns to the country itself. The revenue generated from uranium mining, a valuable and sought-after global commodity, was disproportionately funneled outside Niger's borders. The contracts and agreements struck between Niger and French entities favored the latter, resulting in a situation where Niger, rich in uranium resources, struggled with poverty, limited development, and a lack of substantial benefits from its prized natural assets. However, the winds of change swept across Niger on July 26, 2023, with a coup that would alter the course of the nation's history. On this day, a group of military officers seized power, driven by a desire for change and a vision of prosperity. The reasons behind this coup were manifold, but chief among them were systemic corruption, economic stagnation, and a deep-seated desire for reform. The key players in this dramatic turn of events were leaders from within Niger's own military, individuals who had grown disillusioned with the status quo. They sought to bring about a radical shift in power, and they did. In the immediate aftermath of the coup, the country underwent a period of instability, but it was an instability that held the promise of change. This coup was more than just a power shift. It marked the beginning of a new policy direction for Niger. The new leadership pledged to tackle corruption, to revitalize the economy, and to create a more equitable society. Their vision was of a Niger that could stand tall on the global stage, a nation defined not by its struggles, but by its successes. The coup, while a shocking event, signaled the dawn of a new era for Niger's political and economic landscape. The tide turned swiftly in Niger's favor, following a decisive coup and the subsequent expulsion of France. The country embarked on a path of renegotiating agreements with foreign companies and asserting sovereign control over its resources. This strategic shift toward nationalization aimed to ensure that the benefits reaped from resource exploitation directly contributed to Niger's prosperity, thereby reducing dependence on foreign entities. This nationalization drive allowed Niger to influence resource management, pricing, and distribution, ensuring more significant revenue retention within the country. The move also aimed at creating more jobs locally, fostering economic development, and controlling the long-term strategic planning of the natural resource sector. Niger increased the price of uranium from €7 per kilo to in between €70, €153, 77 cents per kilo, immediately after expelling France. Previously, French companies were the ones selling Niger's uranium and only giving a 5% to Niger. The rise in uranium prices following the coup, reflecting the international market rates, demonstrated Niger's newfound control over its resources. It marked a departure from past practices where France disproportionately benefited from Niger's resources. This radical change disrupted the exploitative status quo, alarming Western nations who tried to reverse the coup. This shift in Africa's economic landscape signifies a departure from the past, where coups primarily served interests aligned with the West. The recent coups in Niger and Burkina Faso aimed to remove leaders perceived as puppets serving foreign interests, prioritizing national development over external influences. The historical context of African coups, often manipulated during the Cold War era by superpowers to serve their interests, contrasts starkly with the recent coups. These newer coups prioritize national interests, rejecting leaders compromising the country's sovereignty for Western gains. This transformation in African coups signifies a shift toward establishing robust independent nations challenging Western dominance. The possibility of other African countries following suit remains intriguing. Additionally, the potential ramifications if Western nations choose to impose sanctions add an element of uncertainty to this evolving narrative. As it stands, Niger proudly stands as the fastest-growing economy in Africa, producing remarkable figures such as a projected real GDP of 7.0% in 2023, expected to escalate to 11.1% in 2024, with all sectors demonstrating growth rates of at least 5%. These numbers are indicative of a significant economic turnaround unparalleled in recent African history.